Aisha Harper had always believed that the worst betrayals came with noise, shouting, slamming doors, accusations thrown like sharp objects. But the real destruction, she learned that afternoon, arrived in silence. She turned the key in the lock so slowly it barely made a sound. Normally, she would have kicked the door open with her hip. While balancing grocery bags, calling out, "I'm home," loud enough for the neighbors 2 floors down to hear. Today, there were no bags, no energy, no greeting ready on her lips. The banquet she had spent 14 days and 3 almost sleepless nights preparing had evaporated with one
Phone call.
The CEO had to fly out unexpectedly. "We're canceling. Keep the deposit." 14 days of supplier negotiations. Menu tastings, floral orders, linen rentals, staff scheduling, all gone. The food was already prepped and would mostly go to waste or be donated at a loss. Her nerves were frayed to threads. All she wanted was silence, hot tea, bare feet, and the couch. It was barely 2:07 p.m. Derek should still be at the logistics, office fighting with truck drivers. JJ, Jerome Jr., her 12-year-old from her first marriage, should still be in his last period at middle school. The apartment should have been empty. She slipped off her high-heeled boots in the foyer, placing them neatly on the mat so they wouldn't leave marks on the hardwood. Her coat stayed on. She didn't have the strength to hang it yet. As she reached for the hallway light switch, a voice stopped her cold. It came from the living room, low, clipped, authoritative. "Do you understand everything?" Derek. Aisha's first instinctive reaction was warmth. He'd come home early. Maybe he'd heard about the canceled event and wanted to surprise her, comfort her. She almost stepped forward, arms already half opening for a hug. Then the tone registered. This wasn't the tired but tender voice he used when he kissed her forehead after long days. This was the metallic edge she had heard only a handful of times, usually when he was on speakerphone tearing into some subcontractor who had delayed a shipment, cold, controlled, dangerous. Her hand froze on the switch. Instead of turning on the light, she eased one step sideways, pressing herself against the wall. The heavy maroon velvet curtain that divided the foyer from the living room hung there like a theater drape. She slipped behind it, moving so slowly the fabric barely rustled. Her heart slammed against her ribs so hard she worried they could hear it. Through a narrow gap she had created by nudging the curtain aside with one finger, she saw them. Derek stood in the center of the room, still wearing his best charcoal gray suit, the one he saved for client, meetings and holiday photos. Freshly shaved, hair perfect, subtle scent of his expensive cedar and bergamot cologne, drifting even to her hiding place. He looked like a man who had closed a big deal. Across from him stood JJ. Her son looked tiny, shoulders hunched, school backpack still on, fingers twisting the strap nervously. He kept his eyes on the floor. He looked like a child waiting to be punished. Derek reached into his inside jacket pocket with deliberate slowness, the movement almost theatrical. When his hand emerged, it held a thick wad of $20 bills. Aisha's breath caught. She handled the household finances. Every dollar was accounted for. Derek's salary, he always said, barely covered gas and his daily coffee. Where had this cash come from? He counted out several notes, 10, maybe 12, and extended them toward the boy. "Here, that's your cut for keeping silent." His voice was flat, businesslike. "But if your mother ever finds out the truth, it's over. Everything crashes. You'll go back to your deadbeat dad, and I'll walk away. Do you hear me?" JJ lifted his eyes for the first time. There was no excitement, no greedy sparkle at the sight of money. Only fear, thick, sticky adult fear in a child's face. His hand shook as he accepted the bills. He crumpled them quickly and shoved them deep into the side pocket of his backpack, as though touching them too long would burn him. "I understand. Uncle Derek," he whispered. Derek's jaw tightened. "Not Uncle Derek. You call me Dad." He adjusted his tie in the reflection of the hallway mirror, smoothing it with satisfaction. "I do more for you than anyone else ever has. Now zip your mouth. Aisha needs to sleep easy at night." He picked up his leather briefcase, turned, and walked straight toward the front door. Aisha shrank back against the wall, willing herself to become part of the plaster. Derek passed within 3 feet of her hiding place. She heard the jingle of his keys, the soft click of the lock, the fading echo of his footsteps on the stairwell. Only then did she exhale. But the breath brought no relief, only fury. The fear that had kept her frozen, dissolved in a rush of adrenaline. So intense her scalp tingled. Her hands shook, but her mind sharpened to razor clarity. She stepped out from behind the curtain. JJ was still standing exactly where Derek had left him, frozen in the middle of the living room. staring at the floor, jacket still on. When he saw her, he flinched violently, as though an electric current had run through him. The color drained from his face until he looked like chalk. "Mom!" His voice cracked into a high squeak. You're supposed to be at the banquet." Aisha didn't answer. She walked toward him with measured steps. The softness he was used to seeing in her eyes was gone. In its place stood the woman who had built a catering business from scratch while raising him alone, who had negotiated with suppliers who tried to cheat her, who had carried them both through lean years. That woman had just watched her husband bribe her child to lie. "Give me your backpack." JJ clutched it to his chest and took a step backward. "No, Mom, there's nothing in there. It's just lunch money." "The backpack, now." He started to cry, quiet, resigned sobs, hands covering his face. Aisha didn't hesitate. She lunged forward, grabbed the strap, and yanked. He was 12 and still small for his age. The bag came free easily. She carried it to the dining table and upended it. Textbooks, spiral notebooks, a battered pencil case, gym shoes tumbled out in a heap. Then the crumpled wad of 20s fluttered onto the tablecloth like dirty snow. Aisha swept the money aside. She wasn't interested in the cash right now. She wanted the why. She began searching the pockets methodically. Side compartments, front zipper pouch, the hidden pocket she knew he used for bus passes. Her fingers closed around something hard and metallic. A set of keys, not their apartment keys. A small plastic tag dangled from the ring. A number scrawled in black marker, 3B. As she pulled them free, something else fell from the same hidden pocket. A glossy, trifold brochure. Aisha unfolded it with hands that no longer shook. Estates at Silverbrook. Luxury suburban homes. The cover photo showed a 2-story, craftsman-style house with floor-to-ceiling windows, stone fireplace, wraparound porch. Below the photo, in elegant font, starting at $1.2 million. Their combined annual income wouldn't qualify for the mortgage. On a tool shed in that development, she lifted her eyes to her son. JJ stood with arms limp at his sides, tears carving clean tracks down his dirty cheeks. "What is this, Jerome?" Her voice was ice. She held up the keys. "Where did these come from? Is Derek making you sell something? Deliver packages? Answer me." He shook his head frantically. "No, Mom. No drugs, I swear." "Then what? Why is he paying you to be quiet? Where did these keys come from?" JJ took a shuddering breath. He understood the point of no return had been crossed. Derek was gone. His mother was here. And right now, she was more frightening than any threat his stepfather had ever made. They're the keys to Grandma's condo." The floor seemed to tilt under Aisha's feet. Her mother's condo. The 2-bedroom unit on the north side where Aisha had spent every summer until she was 17. Where her mother had died peacefully in her sleep 6 months earlier. They had agreed to wait until spring for renovations. New floors, fresh paint, so they could rent it or sell it at a better price. Derek had volunteered to check on it monthly, pay the utilities, make sure the pipes didn't freeze. She had handed him the spare keys herself, grateful for his help. Aisha repeated the words slowly, as though testing their weight. "The keys to Grandma's condo." JJ nodded miserably. "Uncle Derek, he rented it out. People have been living there a while. I take them the keys sometimes after school if they forget them. Or I pick up the rent envelope when he can't. He said it was better that way. That it shouldn't sit empty costing money." Aisha looked down at the 20s scattered across the table. "And this money? That's my cut." His voice dropped to a whisper. "He calls it dividends. He said we're men. We have to earn while you don't know. He said if you found out you'd get mad and take it all away. But this way we're saving. For a house." He nodded toward the Silverbrook brochure. "He said we'd buy that one and move there together. A surprise for you? That's why I couldn't tell." Aisha stared at the perfect photo of the perfect house. Then at the stranger's keys to her dead mother's home. Then at her son's frightened eyes. The lie was so enormous it almost refused to fit inside her skull. Derek, who complained every time the electric bill went up $5, who claimed they couldn't afford new winter boots for JJ, had been secretly renting out her inheritance, pocketing the cash, and turning her 12-year-old into a courier and a conspirator. But the worst part, the part that made bile rise in her throat, was the threat. She had heard through the curtain, "If your mother finds out, everything crashes." He hadn't said it like a man protecting a surprise. He had said it like a man covering his tracks. Aisha closed her fingers around the keys until the metal edges bit into her palm. "Get dressed," she said. JJ blinked through tears.
"Where are we going?"
"To Grandma's condo." Her voice was calm now, dangerously calm. I want to see this surprise with my own eyes. Aisha zipped her coat without glancing in the mirror. There was nothing left to check. Her face would be pale. Her eyes red-rimmed, but none of that mattered anymore. She turned to JJ, who stood shivering in the hallway, still wearing his jacket, the backpack now empty on the floor like a shed skin. "You're staying here," she told him. Her voice was low, final. "Lock the door behind me. Deadbolt and chain. Don't open it for anyone, not even Derek. If he calls or knocks, tell him I came home with a migraine and I'm sleeping. Don't argue. Just repeat it. Understand?" JJ nodded quickly, eyes wide. "Yes, Mom." She cupped his cheek for one brief second, long enough to feel how cold his skin was, then pulled away. "I'll be back before dinner. If anything feels wrong, call Mrs. Monroe next door. She has a spare key." She didn't wait for more questions. The door closed behind her with a soft, decisive click. Outside, the February air bit at her face. Snow had started again, fine, dry flakes that swirled under the streetlights. She didn't wait for the bus. She stepped into the street and raised her hand. The first yellow taxi that passed screeched to a stop. "North Side, Maplewood Gardens, Building C, fast as you can." The driver glanced at her in the rearview mirror, saw the set jaw, the clenched fists, and didn't argue about the fare. 23 minutes later, they pulled up outside the familiar red brick low-rise. Aisha paid in cash, told him to keep the change, and stepped out. The building smelled the same. Damp concrete, faint cat urine, someone's dinner of fried onions drifting from an open window. She climbed the stairs 2 at a time to the 3rd floor, apartment 3B, her mother's door. First she tried her own key, the one on her personal ring that hadn't been used in months. It slid into the lock easily, but when she turned it, nothing happened. The tumblers refused to move. They had changed the lock. A thin thread of panic tried to worm back into her chest. She crushed it. She pulled out the set JJ had carried, the ones with the black marker tag. The key slid in smoothly, turned, click. The door opened. Silence greeted her. No television murmur. No voices, no footsteps. Just the low hum of the refrigerator and the faint tick of the wall clock that had belonged to her grandmother. Aisha flipped the hallway light switch and stopped breathing. The Victorian mahogany chest, her great-grandfather's pride, smuggled out of Europe before the war, was gone. The carved mirror that had hung above it for 40 years was gone. The narrow entry table where her mother used to leave keys and mail, gone. She moved into the living room like someone walking through a dream. The oak dining table was missing. The china cabinet that held her mother's wedding porcelain, empty space. The floral sofa where Aisha had curled up with books as a teenager, gone. The walls showed pale rectangles where pictures had hung. Faded wallpaper stared back at her like accusing eyes. In place of furniture stood cardboard boxes, dozens of them, stacked 3 and 4 high along every wall, sealed with wide brown packing tape. Aisha approached the nearest stack. Her fingers tore the tape on the top box. Inside, nestled in molded styrofoam, lay 6 brand-new laptops, still in factory wrapping, high-end models with RGB keyboards. She moved to the next box. Smartphones, latest generation, 30 units at least. Another box, graphics cards, still sealed, the kind cryptocurrency miners fought over. This was not a rental apartment. This was a warehouse. Derek had emptied her, mother's home of every family heirloom that could be sold on the second hand market, and turned the space into a distribution point for high value. Electronics, most likely stolen or smuggled. The furniture hadn't been stored. It had been liquidated. Aisha's knees buckled. She caught herself on the edge of a box, breathing hard. Her phone was already in her hand. She tried to take pictures, wide shots of the boxes, close-ups of the laptop serial numbers, but her hands shook so violently the images came out blurred. She forced herself to stop. Panic would not help. Evidence would. She left the door slightly ajar, didn't trust herself to close it properly, and ran back down the stairs. Next destination, the county registrar's office. If Derek had forged documents and sold the condo outright, she needed to know before the trail went cold. The registrar's office was still open. Thursday hours extended until 7. There was the usual line of tired people clutching folders and numbered tickets. Aisha ignored them all. She spotted Lena at window 5, former high school classmate, 10 years behind the glass, always kind. Aisha pressed her ID against the plexiglass. "Lena, right now, please." Lena's eyes widened at Aisha's face, pale, wild, streaked with dried tears. She didn't ask questions. She began typing. Maplewood Gardens. Unit 3B. My mother's name was on the deed. Eleanor Harper. Check current status, please. Minutes stretched like hours. Aisha leaned close to the glass, trying to read the reflection in Lena's bifocals. Finally, Lena looked up. No alarm in her expression, only quiet pity. The title is still in your name, Aisha. No transfer of ownership. No sale recorded. Aisha's shoulders dropped. Thank God. But, Lena hesitated, then printed a single sheet and slid it through the gap under the window. There is a lien. Aisha snatched the paper. Collateral assignment. $150,000, date 1 month ago. Lender, rapid cash advance, a payday loan. Mill notorious for 200% plus interest. Guarantor, Derek S. Thorne. And, impossibly, her own signature at the bottom. I never signed this, Aisha whispered. The line behind her had gone quiet. People were listening. Lena leaned forward and dropped her voice. It's notarized. Looks legitimate on paper. But if you didn't sign, it's forgery. The purpose line says urgent medical treatment. There's a linked contract number with Premier Health Associates. Aisha stared at the clinic name. Derek was healthy. JJ was healthy. What medical emergency justified risking her mother's condo? She stepped away from the window, found a quiet corner near the water fountain, and dialed the clinic number printed on the document. It rang for a long time. Premier Health Associates, Olga speaking. Aisha forced her voice steady. I'm calling about contract. 4518. Payment was made by Derek S. Thorne. I need details on the upcoming procedure. Keyboard clicks. Yes, full payment received. Heart surgery scheduled for next Tuesday. Pediatric congenital defect repair. The patient? Aisha's throat closed. Derek Thorne is the payer and guarantor. The patient is Ashton Thorne, age 3. The phone slipped from Aisha's fingers. It hit the tile with a dull crack. The screen spiderwebbed but stayed lit. Ashton Thorne, 3 years old. Derek had a son who carried his surname, a son for whom he had apparently needed $150,000 in emergency funds. Funds obtained by forging Aisha's signature, collateralizing her inheritance, emptying her mother's home, and turning her 12-year-old stepson into an unwitting accomplice. 3 years, at least 3 years of lies. 3 years of Derek coming home to her bed, eating her cooking, complaining about bills while another woman raised his biological child somewhere else. Aisha picked up the cracked phone. The address was listed, Forest Lane 12, gated community on the east side, the kind of place where people who had everything lived behind. Brick walls and security gates. She walked out of the registrar's office without thanking Lena. Another taxi. Another 20-minute ride that felt like years. Forest Lane, number 12. Pull up across the street and wait. The driver parked in the shadow of a large oak. Aisha sat gripping the door handle, eyes fixed on the modern brick building with its manicured hedges and discreet brass numbers. She didn't have to wait long. The lobby door opened. Derek stepped out. But this wasn't the Derek she knew. He wasn't wearing the tired slump of a logistics manager who claimed to work overtime every week. He was smiling, wide, genuine, relaxed. In his arms sat a small boy in a bright blue coat and a wool hat with a pom-pom. The child laughed as Derek tossed him gently into the air and caught him again. Beside Derek walked a young woman, maybe 28, beautiful in an effortless way. Long dark hair, expensive coat in cherry red, laughing up at him with open adoration. Derek kissed her cheek. Then her lips, slow, possessive, familiar. He set the boy down, ruffled his hair, said something that made both of them smile wider. Then he walked to a black SUV parked nearby, while the woman and child waved goodbye from the steps. A family. A real, happy, complete family. Aisha felt something inside her tear cleanly in two. Let's go, she told the driver, voice hoarse. Take me home. The ride back was silent. Fury no longer boiled. It had cooled into something harder, sharper, more precise. She rehearsed no speeches. She planned no immediate confrontation. She simply sat and let the image burn into her memory. Derek tossing his secret son in the air, kissing his secret wife, while her own son wore shoes with holes in the soles. Because there was no money. When she opened the apartment door, the smell of frying meat hit her. Derek was home. He sat at the kitchen table, head in his hands. A half-empty bottle of bourbon stood beside an untouched plate of steak and potatoes. He looked wrecked, 10 years older, eyes bloodshot. Aisha froze in the doorway, coat still on. Derek lifted his head. Aisha, his voice cracked. Thank God you're here. He slid off the chair onto his knees, crawled across the linoleum, grabbed her hands, tried to kiss her palms. Forgive me. I didn't know how to tell you. I wanted to protect you. But they're going to kill us all. Aisha pulled her hands away, stepped back. Who is they, Derek? Old debts. From the 90s. I crossed some very serious people. They found me again. They're watching JJ. They said if I don't pay by tomorrow, they'll take the boy. Aisha almost laughed, cold, bitter. The 90s? You were 20. What debts? And what does JJ have to do with any of this? Derek rose, wiping his face. They've been following him. They know his school route. I borrowed money to pay part of it off, but it wasn't enough. Aisha, I have to sell your mother's condo. Right now, I have a cash buyer. It's the only way to save JJ. There it was. The real goal. The condo. He needed it sold fast, before she discovered the lien, before she learned about Ashton, before the forged signature unraveled. You're lying, she said quietly. Derek roared, slamming his fist on the table. You think I'd make this up? Call JJ, ask him. He turned toward the hallway. JJ, get in here! The bedroom door opened slowly. JJ appeared, pale, eyes darting, avoiding Aisha's gaze. Tell her, Derek ordered, putting a heavy hand on the boy's shoulder. JJ flinched visibly. Tell your mom the truth. JJ swallowed. Mom, it was my fault. Aisha took a step forward. Derek blocked her path like a shield. I stole money, JJ recited in a flat, rehearsed voice, from older kids at school. A lot of money. They said they'd put me on the clock. Uncle Derek found out. He paid them. But now they want interest. Mom, they said they'd kill us. Please let him sell the condo. I don't want to die. Aisha looked at her son and saw a stranger. This wasn't JJ. This was a script, a puppet mouthing lines Derek had fed him. The money she'd seen earlier wasn't dividends. It was payment for this performance. Derek had broken her child, forced a 12-year-old to carry the blame for adult crimes, convinced him he was a criminal whose only salvation was handing over his grandmother's home. Pity vanished. Love for the man she had married vanished. Only cold, diamond-hard anger remained. Fine, Aisha said softly. If it's that serious, we'll sell the condo. Derek's eyes flashed with naked triumph before he masked it with grief. Thank you, baby. You're saving our lives. We'll go to the notary tomorrow. Aisha nodded once. Tomorrow. She turned and walked into the bedroom, closed the door, locked it. She didn't sleep that night. She lay in the dark listening to Derek's fake snores from the living room couch, his martyr act, refusing to disturb her. By morning, the plan was clear. She would not sell the condo. She would destroy Derek Thorne, and she would start by letting him believe he had already won. Aisha didn't sleep much that night either, but this time it wasn't fear keeping her awake. It was calculation. She lay in the dark bedroom listening to Derek's exaggerated snoring from the couch, each fake rumble a reminder of the performance he was putting on. By 5:47 a.m., her plan had crystallized into something cold, precise and merciless. She would give him exactly what he wanted, time, trust, a false sense of victory. And then she would take everything. Morning came gray and bitter. Aisha rose first, made coffee the way Derek liked it, black, no sugar, and carried 2 mugs to the kitchen. When he shuffled in, hair mussed, eyes still red from last night's bourbon tears, she handed him a cup without a word. I thought about it all night, she said quietly, voice deliberately soft. We'll sell the condo, but not today. Derek froze mid-sip. Why not today? The buyer's ready. Cash. Time's running out, Aisha. I know, but the documents you showed me, the copies, need to be updated. The original deed has to be pulled from the registrar. My name officially removed as co-owner. Power of attorney if necessary. That takes 3 to 5 business days minimum. I checked online last night. She lied smoothly. She hadn't checked anything. Let's schedule the closing for next Thursday. I'll take the day off work. We'll do it properly, calmly. Derek studied her face, searching for cracks. Aisha held his gaze, open, submissive, exhausted. Greed flickered behind his caution, then won. Fine, he said at last. 1 week? Not a day more. I'll tell the people that the process has started. As soon as he stepped into the shower, whistling again, Aisha moved. She grabbed her phone and slipped out onto the landing. 3 doors down, she knocked softly. Mrs. Claudette. Monroe opened almost immediately. Robe, curlers, sharp eyes that missed nothing. Aisha, child, you look like you haven't slept in a month. I haven't. Mrs. Monroe, I need your help. Fast, quiet. Can I come in? 5 minutes later, they sat at the old woman's Formica kitchen table. Aisha told her everything. The bribe to JJ, the warehouse in the condo, the forged lien, the secret 3-year-old son, the rehearsed gangster story, the plan to declare her incompetent. She showed the photos on her phone, blurry boxes of electronics, The lien document, the clinic contract. Mrs. Monroe listened without interrupting, only sipping tea and occasionally tapping her fingernail on the table. When Aisha finished, the older woman set her cup down with a decisive clink. "That slithering snake," she hissed. "I always said his eyes were too sweet. Sweet things rot fastest." "I need evidence," Aisha said. "Real, court-admissible evidence. Not just my word against his. For JJ especially, so he sees the truth and stops being afraid." Mrs. Monroe's lips curved. "Where does he keep his important papers?" "Briefcase, always, but he left it in the hallway when he went to shower." The old woman stood. "I'm old. I've got nothing to lose. I'll stand guard at the bathroom door. If the water stops, I'll yell that he's flooding my kitchen. You search." They slipped back into Aisha's apartment. Shower water hissed steadily. Mrs. Monroe pressed her ear to the bathroom door like a sentry. Aisha knelt beside the leather briefcase. Latches clicked open. Folders, invoices, blueprints, a day planner, nothing unusual at first glance. She checked side pockets, pens, gum, business cards. Then she felt the bottom lining. Too thick. She pressed. Something shifted. A seam had been neatly sliced and retaped from the inside. She peeled it open with her thumbnail. A small plastic SIM card dropped into her palm. Aisha's heart kicked. She ran to the kitchen drawer, where she kept an old backup phone, the one she used as an alarm clock. Inserted the SIM. No pin. The screen woke. Dozens of unread messages from one contact. "My love." Aisha opened the thread. "Raquel, Ashton keeps asking when Daddy's coming home to play with his truck. Derek, soon, baby. Be patient. The old witch suspects something, but I've got it under control." Aisha's stomach turned. Old witch. She scrolled backward. "Raquel, when will she finally disappear? You promised by New Year's. Derek, be patient. Everything's on track. I spoke to the doctor. In a week, she has the psychiatric evaluation. I've laid the groundwork, told everyone she's having a breakdown. Getting aggressive. JJ will confirm. Once she's declared incompetent and committed, I become legal guardian of the boy. Then we sell the condo legally. The money's ours. And the kid? I'll place him in a group home a month later. Say I can't handle him. No one will question it." Aisha covered her mouth. He wasn't planning to leave. He was planning to erase her, label her insane, lock her away, steal her son, steal her home, steal her life. The shower cut off. Mrs. Monroe's urgent whisper, "He's coming!" Aisha yanked the SIM, shoved it in her jeans pocket, slammed the phone back in the drawer, closed the briefcase just as the bathroom door opened. Derek emerged in a cloud of steam, towel around his waist, pleased with himself. "Oh, Mrs. Monroe, what brings you here?" "Came to borrow salt," the old woman said flatly, "and remind you about your share of the hallway repairs. Everyone else paid." "I'll pay soon," Derek waved her off. "Soon we'll have plenty of money. I'll tile the whole building in gold." He winked at Aisha. "Right, baby?" "Right," she echoed, meeting his eyes. "Everything's about to change." After Mrs. Monroe left, Aisha moved quickly. First, online banking. She transferred every cent of her personal savings, JJ's college fund, emergency cash, to her aunt's account in another city. Derek knew the account existed but had no login. Second, she dug out her old voice recorder from paralegal days. Battery full. She tested it, clear. That evening she began the performance. When Derek came home, she met him in a disheveled robe, mascara smudged, hair wild. She moved vases from shelf to shelf, muttering to herself, then burst into sudden tears. "Aisha, what's wrong?" He pulled out his phone, subtly recording. "I hear them." "In the walls. They're watching us." She wrung her hands. "The gangsters? They're here." He patted her shoulder, still filming. "You need rest. I'll call the doctor. Sedatives, maybe evaluation." "Record away, snake," she thought behind her hands. "My recordings will bury you." The next day, Derek announced he was meeting the condo buyer. Serious guy. Cash deposit. Need to be alone to negotiate. You understand? "Of course, honey," she whispered, eyes down. "I'm so scared. You handle everything." The moment the door closed, she changed. Jeans, hoodie, baseball cap, dark sunglasses. She took another taxi to Forest Lane 12. She buzzed the intercom. "Who is it?" "Flower delivery for Raquel Grimes." Buzz. Door opened. "Third floor." She rang the bell. Raquel answered, house robe, toddler on her hip, looking cozy and unsuspecting. "What do you want?" "No flowers." "Hello, Raquel?" Aisha gave a sad, polite smile. "I'm not delivery. May I come in? It's about Derek." Raquel tensed. "Who are you? His wife?" "God, no." Aisha waved a hand. "I'm his cousin from Dallas. He didn't tell you?" Doubt flickered, but Raquel stepped aside. "Come in." The kitchen smelled of fresh coffee, expensive appliances, renovations paid with Aisha's mother's memory. Aisha sat on the edge of a chair. Derek begged me not to say anything, but I can't stay quiet. You know about his problems? What problems? Raquel set Ashton in his playpen. Everything's fine. Business is good. Aisha sighed. What business, darling? He's drowning in debt. Borrowed huge amounts from dangerous people, gangsters. They're hunting him, hunting his family. Raquel paled. He said he was selling his ex-wife's condo. We were moving, buying a house. That condo's already leaned for a loan he took a month ago. He spent it all on interest. The debt keeps growing. They're coming for anyone close to him, even you and the child. I came to warn you. Leave, hide, before it's too late. Aisha stood, feigning urgency. Call him. Ask about rapid cash advance. Ask about the debt. Then go to your mother's, now. She left Raquel frozen in panic. 30 minutes later, as Aisha neared her building, Derek called, breathless. Aisha, I have to leave town. Urgent business trip. 2 days. Coming home now to grab documents. I'm at the store, she lied calmly. Be back in an hour. Great, don't rush, she smirked. He wanted her gone so he could pack in peace. Instead, she waited 1 floor up in the stairwell. 10 minutes later, Derek burst into the apartment, cursing, throwing clothes into a duffel. His briefcase lay open on the bed, forgotten in his haste. Aisha slipped inside silently. Derek? He jumped, socks flying. You said an hour. Short line. She stepped closer. You were yelling on the phone. Serious? Work. I have to go. He grabbed the duffel, tossed the briefcase to the floor, ran to the bathroom, probably for his razor. Aisha dropped to her knees beside the open case. Among papers, a thick black notebook he always called his idea journal. She opened it. Not a journal. Ledger. Dates, amounts, names. Oct 15, bribe, child services. $5,000, family instability report. Nov 20, warehouse rent, $300. Profit, electronics sale, $20,000. Deck 1, loan payment, $10,000. Deck 10, auto purchase. Toyota Camry. $32,000, registered RG, gift for RQ. Source, rapid cash advance, collateral AH condo. Legend, son's heart surgery. Aisha's vision tunneled. Ashton wasn't sick. There was no surgery. Derek had taken a $150,000 loan, claiming emergency heart surgery for his son, and used part of it to buy his mistress a $32,000 car, while JJ wore boots with peeling soles all winter, while Derek said, no money. Be tough. She photographed every page, hands steady now, toilet flushed. She slammed the notebook back, jumped up, pretended to rummage in the closet. Derek stormed out, grabbed the briefcase without checking, rushed past her. I'm gone. Don't call. No service. When I'm back, we close on the condo. Door slammed. Aisha sank onto the bed. Rage had cooled into steel. She dialed Mrs. Monroe. Gather everything. Call your friend at the DA's office. We have fraud, forgery, bribery of officials, child endangerment. But first, we throw him the birthday party he's been begging for. Derek's 40th anniversary. He'd demanded it for months. Royal Aisha. I want everyone to see who I am. They would see. All week, Aisha played perfect wife, booking the Imperial Grand Ballroom, choosing menu, decorations. Derek watched with mild suspicion, but vanity overrode caution. You're doing great, sweetie. Finally understand who runs this house. Of course, darling. She smiled, hiding the new guest list behind her back. She invited his boss, Mr. Henderson, who already suspected shady deals, colleagues he bragged to, even 2 collectors from Rapid Cash Advance, anonymous tip, lavish party, debtor celebrating. Then the ace, Derek's mother, Gail Thorne. He hadn't spoken to her in 5 years, claimed she was an alcoholic who cursed him. Aisha found the old number in an ancient address book. A neighbor answered, fetched Gail. I'm alive, Gail, Aisha said. And I'm inviting you to your son's anniversary. I'll pay your ticket. You should see how he mourns me. Silence. Then, I'll be there, daughter. Meet me at the airport. Last touch, new SIM card. Text to Raquel. Your man is throwing a huge engagement party at the Imperial Grand Ballroom, announcing his new fiancé. If you want to keep your family, show up and claim what's yours. He's too shy to introduce you. The morning of the party, Aisha steamed Derek's suit while he preened in the mirror. Big day, he said, metallic edge back. No stunts, Aisha. Where are the condo documents? Blue folder on the chest. All prepared. He picked it up, felt the weight, smiled predatorily. Open it, she suggested sweetly. Check. His phone rang. Boss. He tucked the folder under his arm without looking inside. I trust you. Our future depends on this. The Imperial Grand Ballroom glittered, crystal chandeliers, white-gloved waiters, champagne towers. Derek sat at the head table, folder beside him like a trophy, stroking it occasionally. Aisha sat demurely beside him, watching guests arrive. Henderson, scowling, bouquet in hand. Colleagues, whispering. 2 leather-jacketed men at a back table, ordering water. Derek noticed nothing. He was drunk on importance. He stood, glass raised. "Friends, today I toast success. A real man gets what he wants." Weak applause. Aisha checked her watch. Doors flew open. A small, frail woman in a plain scarf and coat marched in. Knotted walking stick tapping like a gavel. Security froze. Derek's glass trembled. "Mom?" Gail Thorne advanced. "From the grave, son. Came to see your funeral?" Murmurs. "You wrote I buried my wife. Begged money for the funeral, but here she sits, alive." Derek paled. "Mom, wrong person?" Aisha stood, took the folder. Derek wanted to announce something important. He snatched it, ripped it open, shook out the contents. No deed, divorce petition. Police report, fraud, forgery, restraining order. Derek Thorne versus Aisha Harper and Jerome Harper. Derek stared. "What is this?" Aisha's voice cut the room. "JJ never signed anything. He gave the originals to me." "This is your future." Derek lunged. "You witch!" Gail's iron grip caught his arm. "Touch her, monster, and I break your legs myself." Doors opened again. Raquel burst in, tears, disheveled hair, evening dress. "Derek, is it true?" "You lied?" Chaos. Aisha pressed a remote. The projector screen lit up, supposed career highlights. Instead, grainy video from behind the curtain. Derek handing JJ cash. "Here's your cut for keeping silent. If your mother finds out, it's over." Derek spun. "Turn it off. Deep fake." Next clip, audio over photo of him kissing Raquel. "The kid's dumb as a rock. Once we get the condo cash, group home for him. My heir is Ashton." "These two? Trash resources?" Silence fell like a blade. Raquel screamed. "A resource? You stole money from my car?" Gail swung her stick, crack across Derek's face. Blood sprayed. "I have no son." Derek howled, clutching his cheek. He pointed at JJ. "It was him. The kid's a thief, an addict. I covered for him." JJ rose slowly, picked up the microphone, walked to center. "I'm not a thief. I'm not an addict. I just wanted Mom happy. You said you'd kill her if I talked." He listed dates, actions, forced errands, calm, adult. Mrs. Monroe stepped forward with a folder. Notarized statements, bank records, photos of the ledger, bribes to school, to child services. Guests gasped. Police entered. 3 officers. Derek Thorne? Warrant for fraud, forgery, child endangerment. Handcuffs clicked. As they led him out, Derek looked back. Raquel turned away in disgust. Gail stared through him. Aisha and JJ stood shoulder to shoulder. He understood then. He hadn't lost because they were clever. He lost because they were family. And he was alone. 1 month later, snowy January sun. Aisha sorted mail in the kitchen. Bank letter, lien voided. Debt transferred to Derek Thorne. Court order, Toyota Camry seized from Raquel Grimes, awarded to Aisha Harper as damages. Aisha laughed, loud, free. She sold the car the next day, used the money for renovations. 2 months later, she and JJ stood in the bright, fresh condo. New floors, new paint, new furniture. No trace of Derek. "How do you like it?" she asked, arm around his shoulders. "It's awesome, Mom, really. It's our house, son. No one enters without permission, ever." She drew back the light drapes. Sun flooded in. Outside, life moved on. Inside, so did they.